Greetings, America. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk, or more importantly, Dan, the ginger with the seven head, responding to stuff on the internet. Yes, it's been brought to my attention as well as my own recognition of how my forehead is. Yeah, maybe that's more of a six head, perhaps. Yeah, maybe it's a six head. We'll see. I know this is the wife responding, so I better. Okay. Those coupons. Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm gonna ignore that. Not that my wife watches my videos anyway, so she won't know that I said that. Anyways, okay. So, um, some friends of mine from the old Facebook have either posted some content or have responded to some content, and it's always a great source of stuff to talk about, especially under the premise that I've set forth, which is attempting to overcome any of our socio-political differences and not allowing the media machines, to include the social media machines and the big tech companies, to create massive gaps in our unity, basically divide us and bring us to the brink of civil war. Uh, Maybe there's a lot of hyperbole there, but you know, what else would be the end game? Because it doesn't seem like the machines themselves are doing anything to bring us closer together other than, elected personnel saying it in platitudes that, their actions don't exactly represent. Well, the first thing I want to address, a friend of mine from Facebook had stated that they had moved to Wisconsin from where we once grew up. So this is a friend from high school. So my friend from high school said that they no longer live in Illinois. They have since then moved to Wisconsin. And if you're watching this, what I was trying to follow up on was this move personal? Was there some sort of personal reason behind it? Was this move made for job reasons? Again, that one's pretty substantial. Or did it have anything to do with the socio-political situation of the greater Chicagoland area where we grew up? Because from the way in which you respond to some of my content, it seems that we have similar lines of thinking, and I'm assuming you and your spouse have very similar lines of thinking when it comes to socio-political issues. So I was just kind of curious as to what prompted the move, or are there just certain coincidences, like, you know, we moved because of work, and it just so happens that my socio-political values don't necessarily fall in line with, let's say, I'm probably going to suggest the majority of our graduating class from high school. I could be wrong on that, but I think it's a fair bet to say that the majority of people who may still reside in that area probably lean a little bit more to the left. And I'm often curious if any of them lean to the left for good, solid reasons, or if most recently it was just, I don't want to be a racist for not voting for Obama and everybody has to hate Trump. But we'll move on from that. Another buddy of mine whom I had served with had posted a couple of serious topics on Facebook, and I'm going to read them and expand on them, and hopefully do that in less than 30 minutes. Otherwise, if it takes longer than 30 minutes, too frickin' bad. It is what it is. I'm a long-winded prick with a giant forehead. So, here we go. Uh, So most recently, my friend stated, let me ask a serious question. How are we as a nation supposed to try and come together and unify when we as friends, family, co-workers, and even neighbors can't seem to do it without judging and labeling everything? This is part of our problem. Stop finding reasons to hate each other and look for reasons to come together. Whatever you look for, you will find. So what are you looking for? Okay, not a bad statement. And then someone replied, how about friends and family that don't unfriend each other because they don't agree politically? That's a good place to start. And then somebody else had responded to that. Somebody else who was a friend of mine when I was stationed together. I don't have him on Facebook, though, and I don't remember if I ever did. They responded with, who did that? Um, that kind of falls in line with everything I've been saying as far as, look, you may be a single issue voter because there's one particular topic that is very near and dear to your heart, and you typically vote whether at the local level or at the federal level, for people who are going to support that one particular issue. Otherwise, you may be, the remaining issues that aren't nearly as important, you may be in a different direction. In which case, this whole demonizing of each other, like this whole thing, and I've mentioned it in numerous videos, the 74 million Americans that have been suggested that they need to be deprogrammed, they need to be retrained, that they're neo-Nazis, that they're part of a problem. I mean, I think at the time of the Civil War, what was considered part of the population of the United States, 74 million would still, statistically speaking, outweigh the populace of the Confederate States. And we had a civil war, so I'll just leave it at that. My same friend, a week or two, give or take, earlier, had posted the following. The definition of terrorism is, and I quote, the use of violence and threats to intimidate or coerce, especially for political purposes. I'm going to pause for one quick second. As a Homeland Security major who took countless number of classes dedicated to anti and counterterrorism, where at the time I took the course, there was no focus, where you had Homeland Security and then like 4 or 5 different areas of focus to major under. At the time, I basically created my own focus against counterterrorism. In doing so, one particular course I took, we had to expand upon the fact that there is not a universally agreed upon definition of terrorism. Between all the different departments within the United States, as well as various supporting agencies, to include other foreign entities, Great Britain, etc., there are a multitude of definitions. There's a lot of common threads. The threat of violence, the use of violence. There are a lot of commonalities, but there is no one clearly defined definition that spans everybody. But that's not a ding on my friend. His definition is pretty simple for the purpose of this conversation. So, my friend goes on to say, what is happening in our nation's capital today is deplorable and disgusting. Regardless of Democrat or Republican, black or white, this is just unacceptable. Every single one of them need to be arrested and put in jail for criminal terrorism. Let me be clear, having been security for a long time, had it been me, I would use less than lethal means. Baton, OC spray, and violent takedowns. Then people would be shot would they still have attempted to act stupid and break the law. This is a completely unacceptable way to act and deserves to be met with violent opposition if needed to correct your ignorance. If this offends you, then maybe we shouldn't be friends and you can take your overly sensitive self away from me, and I don't have time for ignorant people with no moral or ethical competency. Now, how I plan to expand on this is very open-mindedly. I remember specifically this friend of mine was very adamant about voting for Barack Obama when we served together at one point in time. If you haven't noticed, I'm not giving names away, I'm not giving locations away, because I don't have permission to call these people out. I think call out is a bit harsh, but I don't have permission to use their names. I don't have permission to, express who they are, and I don't want to, because God forbid, if I do that and they suffer backlash, I'll feel culpable, and more than likely I would be in a legal sense, but I don't wish to do that. That's not my goal. So, picking back up. This friend of mine, I remember being very adamant about supporting Barack Obama. And when I questioned my friend about it, my friend was very adamant about the fact that they were more impressed with his decorum and with his presentation and with his policies, and they were less concerned about political party. I think there was a little bit of that. I think a lot of it was riding the wave and the hype that was the massive push that the Democratic Party put behind him and his complexion. A lot of people won't agree with me, if not because they're either A, in denial, or B, they're hardline Democrats, and that's fine. I'm not here to impress anybody or make everybody agree with me 100%. But what I do find to be truth is that a lot of people voted for him based on his presentation, and a lot of people voted for him because of his pigmentation. And I think a lot of people also voted to avoid the stigmatism of being labeled racist. I do believe that accounts for the first election. The second election, I really couldn't tell you, other than Mitt Romney was just way too vanilla, way too just, bleh. He just wasn't exciting. So, um, I agree with a lot of the things that are said, as well as if I wanted to, I could disagree. I could tear it apart. I could call him a hypocrite, or her. Sorry. I could call my friend a hypocrite if I wanted to. But I'm not going to do that because you can have multitudes of feelings. And here's why I'm going to say that. The actions that took place at the Capitol, to include the actions that have taken anywhere else in the United States, that have caused loss of life, that have caused irreversible destruction to property and businesses, that have caused unnecessary harm to innocent people, that have been done so purely for the purpose of satisfying the mob, I disagree with. Now, my friend specifically mentioned the Capitol. Here's where I'm going to elaborate on that. I've said it in different videos, so I'm not going to go too far. All I will say is the events that took place at the Capitol, because they were done under the pretense of people who are theoretically on the right, okay? Republicans, if you will, Republican sympathizers, whatever label you want to use that satisfies how you compute things. It received way more media attention, as well as the media focused on the negatives. The media went way out of its way to focus on the negatives versus some of the good things. The same thing happened in Charlottesville, where there's been very, very little media attention by comparison. I'm not saying there's been none. I'm saying when you compare the two, there's been very little media attention paid to the events in like Kenosha, Wisconsin, or Milwaukee for that matter, or Seattle, or Portland, Oregon, or anywhere else where more left-leaning minded protests that have turned into riots and looting and destruction and loss of life, etc., did not receive the same amount. So in the event that my friend is a more left-leaning person, my friend would more than likely react more emotionally based on the media coverage that was provided to the events at the Capitol, which doesn't necessarily make my friend a hypocrite when my friend suggests we need to get over these diversive things. I don't disagree. My whole contention has been this: if left-leaning, left-minded people are in charge of the major media sources that present information to you, as well as are in control of the social media platforms, where in today's day and age, it's very difficult to not it's very difficult to ignore politics. It's very difficult to ignore socio-political issues, just because, if nothing else, social media shoves it in your face. The only way to completely disconnect is to disconnect. You have to disconnect from all social media, and you basically just like can't watch the news. You have to binge watch stuff, on Amazon or Netflix, in which case you still have to be very careful, because most people that are producing entertainment are also going out of their way to reflect socio-political issues in their content. Just like football. Half the reason I don't watch football anymore is because if I want to watch football, I'm watching football to tune out from all of that stuff. I don't need to tune back in and see socio-political issues that I may agree or disagree with being reflected in football. Okay, and that's where I'm going with that. So if my friend tends to lean more to the left, then my friend would naturally find the actions that took place at the Capitol more disturbing than other events, because those other events didn't receive equal or greater attention than the events at the Capitol. Maybe my friend finds the events at the Capitol more disturbing because it's the Capitol. Uh, my friend can also still believe that we need to unify. That my friend can still believe that we need to that we need to find the good in people, which that's all I've been saying. There's a better than average chance that my friend and I disagree politically, or we see things differently. Um, and together we may not know why. Uh, but I remember this friend for who they were. All right. I remember the good things that this friend of mine did. I remember the things that would be measured as the content of his character. Okay, where how he votes when it's voting season. I'm not really sure how that measures the content of one's character. And I think maybe we're both trying to say the same thing, where how you vote should not necessarily be a predictor of your actions. Uh, it's, I mean, just try to imagine the scenario. EMTs show up on the scene to perform life-saving actions, and the person in need, or the person's representative, like if a husband is in need of medical attention, the EMTs show up and the spouse is like, before you save my husband's life, are you a Democrat or a Republican? Well, I'm a Republican. Here's my card. Okay, you may leave, send new EMTs. You understand the next EMTs may take another 20 minutes to get here. If they're not already out on another call, your husband could die. That's fine. I don't want my husband's life saved by Republicans. Just the sound of that is simply absurd. So, again, when the EMTs show up, they're there to do a job. Okay, it's not about, hi, I'm the Republican EMTs. Is this a Republican voter? It's nothing like that. So, yeah, I don't think my friend's being a hypocrite whatsoever. Um, I think my friend is attempting to respond. Um, what I would say is I'm curious if my friend has any thoughts or opinions on the events that have happened elsewhere, regardless of the amount of media attention. That I would be more interested to know. Um, I know the other friend that had responded with the "Who is that?" comment. I know that particular friend had at one point in time accused me of being a racist. I don't even remember why. If it goes all the way back, if it has anything to do with that whole Obama thing, I've made it clear I'm very anti-Democrat, if for no other reason than history and namesake alone. That's it. I don't care about the pigmentation. I did find it a bit unnerving that, regardless of the individual's political affiliation, Barack Obama could have ran as part of the Nazi Party, but because he was smooth, he was like the Billy D. Williams of political figures. People were going to vote for him because of that. Um, and that much, just goes to show you that perhaps maybe that's also why Trump got elected, because Trump came in and was like, funk that, said some outrageous stuff. Me personally, I've had to think about it a little bit longer. I think the reason I ended up liking Trump so much is because, like, when Hollywood personality, when celebrities, regardless of why you're a celebrity, and the mass media tried to shove it down my throat that he's such a bad person, that he's a racist, that he's all this, that, and the other, I think that endeared me to him harder. Because the biggest thing is he's a racist, and he's a homophobe, and he's a xenophobe, and I'm like, prove it. Physically prove it. And then all I ever heard in response is, well, there's the wall. Every sovereign nation has the right and the capacity to protect its borders. Do we have an issue and a problem with illegal immigration, as well as people like, oh, I don't know, the recent 11 Iranians that were caught at the southern border? Is there an issue at the southern border worthy of attention? Yes, there is, 100%. Does that make anybody a racist or a xenophobe? Not at all. Does that make anybody a white nationalist? Not at all. Being a homophobe? Prove it. prove in any way, shape, or form that Trump would be anti-LGBT, rainbow alphabet, whatever. Prove it. Well, he said the thing about grabbing women in the hoo-hoo. Well, okay, I'm not going to defend it. I will say this. If you live in glass houses, then you shouldn't throw stones. If you are not guilty of having locker room conversations, whether you're a guy or a girl, whether you're gay or straight, if you have not been guilty of having what you thought was a private, unrecorded locker room conversation where you said some stuff you would not want your children, your mother, or your grandmother to hear, then by all means, if you're that puritanical, then by all means, cast your dispersions. If you are fallible, like me, then so be it. Okay? It is what it is. But, for all the things that people... Well, he didn't conduct himself very well, and he said mean things on Twitter. Okay? Great. So which one is it? You want a president who conducts themselves and comports themselves tremendously, or you want a president who does good things? I'm very hesitant to label judgments on Joe Biden. As of right now, when I see stuff, I share it, but I ask for opinions, I ask for thoughts, I ask for fact checking. So I'll leave it at that. But that's all I wanted to say. I would look forward to. Sorry about that. As I was saying, I look forward to any comments, whether you make them to me in person, whether you get a hold of me Facebook Messenger, whether you make a comment on YouTube, or whether you make a comment on Instagram. All I ask is you get involved in the conversation. I know some of my friends out there, for various reasons, most importantly their work, that is their reason for not being able to get involved, in which case you know the deal. Get a hold of me personally and provide me some feedback. Otherwise, still working on the production value. I'm thinking about setting up an actual camera on a tripod, and then for my sister and her boyfriend Daniel, that way I can use the microphone and whatnot. But I'm getting to that point where I'm going to set up like an actual studio somewhere in the house, and use an actual video camera, and maybe there's some editing software. But for now, I'm still using the old webcam on the laptop, and I'm still using the old $30 Logitech microphone headset. So other than that, hit like if you like seeing the guy with the 6-inch forehead, or the 6 head. Hit dislike if you don't like anything I had to say, or my appearance, or whatever, or my production value. Hit subscribe if you want to. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified. Other than that, that's all I got. Peace.